guys, it is week 21 and I had chemo number 11 today, which means I have one more treatment to go. My doctor calls it the final treatment, which, you know, if everything goes well, it's the last time. So my eyes aren't doing too good, but I thought I'd do a book review of the books that I've been reading while I've been on chemo. In addition to all of these, I've also read a lot of online scholarly journal reports and articles and whatnot when my eyes are good. And I'm currently in the middle of reading Frankenstein because I've never read it before. So, pretty awesome. First of all, we have all the lovely pamphlets I've read. And along with these, I've also read, all the full data sheets on the drugs that I'm taking, because it's always good to know what side effects might pop up, and signs of overdoses and things like that. Anyway, so thermometer. I had to get a new thermometer to check and make sure that I don't develop any unholy fevers while I'm sick. And nutrition during cancer treatment. That was a really interesting pamphlet. I got most of these from the hospital. This one is by the American Cancer Society, so it's always good to get articles and things from people who they've actually done studies and looked at solid data rather than just, you know, made up stuff that sounded good to them. And then just extra ones. My favorite one of these, here it is. The 100 Questions and Answers About Lymphoma. This whole book series, they have them on all sorts of different kinds of cancer, and it's really, really good. I would avoid any articles online about Hodgkin's if I were you, just because they tend to be misleading unless they're put out by an organization like hospitals or the American Cancer Society. This one's put out by Cephalon Oncology, which is actually, you know, a company, but still really good information in this one. So if you find any articles that sound a little fishy, talk to your doctor. And then this is a lovely book, Amazed by Grace by Sherry Dew, which some friends in my neighborhood got me. I don't really agree with a lot of Sherry's viewpoints on religious ideas and whatnot. Still, this one is awesome, and I just cut myself. Good God. I'm gonna go clean this out real quick. The joys of warfarin. Let it bleed, let it bleed, let it bleed. This will bleed for a while now. Okay, what else do we have here? So I came across some books from my childhood. They were written in the 1930s, I believe, early 1930s. Yeah. Raggedy Ann stories. Raggedy Andy stories. They're actually really interesting as an adult reading these and finding out tidbits about days of yore, so to speak. So it talks about like roof repair and things like that in these books, and also kind of the moral philosophy of the day and age, and especially in respect to children. So this was interesting read. Oh, Brandon Sanderson, local favorite. He just lives a few miles down the hill from us here. And he writes a really great book series called, now I can't remember what it's called, Mistborn, the Mistborn series. And this is the most recent, a little bit different time period, but still same world, Alloy of Law, pretty fun. I liked that one. And my friend Garrett hooked me up with a comic for my birthday, and I finally got around to reading it. Gwen Stacy Spider-Woman in the Spider-Verse. So it's, they take Gwen Stacy and they put her in a different role. So she gets bit and given the magical superpowers, so to speak. Some good things about this: they try to compile a lot of information in a very small series of panels. It's good, and then it's bad because it's kind of choppy. But beautiful artwork, very interesting read. Like that one. As always, I've been reading a lot of stuff from the Bible, and my favorite is probably Psalms, but I've been rereading some of the Gospels and whatnot, looking at them a little differently, trying to look at them as how the authors thought about religious ideas of the time when they wrote it down, and how that affects their viewpoint on the gospel teachings of Jesus, which I'm Christian, so love doing this and finding out some more stuff as I go through it, or at least trying to find out more stuff. Yeah, Psalms, always good read. James, usually love that one too. Pretty good. Cinder series. I had a neighbor hook me up with this. So Cinder, really interesting. Okay, it's light on the science, but it's science fiction. A little bit of blend of fantasy in there. Don't get too hard on the science. It's not that technically proficient in its language of science, but still fun for what it is, which is basically like fairy tale romance set in a sci-fi setting. And the tricky part about this one, I wouldn't give it to younger audiences. I'd stick with young adult on this. It covers some really heavy topics, genocide and rape, adult themes. So it approaches them from a very nice approach to it. So it's not like it's relishing the violence and things like that, but still it covers some pretty heavy topics. And I read all of it. I loved it. Cinder, Scarlet, Crest, which brings up a good point. It has some romance in there, really kind of juvenile romance, not really a mature perspective. So, and it's a little formulaic. Each of the girls gets a guy. They each go through like these life crises where they're going to die, or are they going to survive? Are they going to be mutilated forever, or is there going to be some kind of redemption? It's still a good read. Just realize, approaching the books, they're fun reads. They're not really realistic. But if there's one that you're going to read, Fairest. I highly recommend reading this one if you're into kind of an intellectually challenging read. This one has some great thoughts. I don't think it's a very realistic view on mental illness, but still it's a fun look at fantasy mental illness. So still, it's really, really engaging. I like this one. If you're into that kind of thing, read it. And the conclusion, Winter. Everything you could have hoped for from the rest of them. Now we get to go back to an old favorite of mine, The Last Unicorn, Peter S. Spiegel. I've read this book multiple times. Recently picked up a copy because I didn't have one, and I found that I really wanted to read it. And I like hard copies. They're easier on my eyes to read right now than digital. So, new book. And I have a friend, in fact, well, an acquaintance, and she has been working on some artwork possibly related to this. So I'm very excited to see things forthcoming from her. And loved getting back into this book. And now I want to go watch the old animated movie again and see some of the stuff that they did, some of the changes and some of the inventions they did with that. Ooh, and now we get down to some of my favorites. So, top 3, in no particular order. Dan Wells, also fairly local. He lives up north though, these days. Next of kin, love his stuff. So if you've read any of the John Cleaver books, realize that this deals with a young individual, not adult, not small child, but young individual who is combating with demonic forces in the world, and they're not demons like you might think of it. They're a little bit different, a little more ancient, legendary kind of demons, and it's kind of a psychological thriller because, of course, along with battling demons, he has to battle his own inner demons. So, like this one, Next of Kin. If you like that sort of thing, great. Warning, of course, it does have violence in it, and some other adult kind of things. But for someone who likes psychological thrillers, you can't get much better than John Cleaver. Great mental acrobatics for a character. This is great. And they decided to put this out in hardback, and my sister was kind enough to get me a copy. Love it! Anyway, Harley Quinn in Mad Love by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm. Bruce Timm, if you like Harley, get this. And for many of us, we will have the unfortunate circumstance of being able to relate to poor Harley Quinn in her romantic infatuations for the Joker, because we fall in love or fall in lust or crush on someone who is just not a good match for us. Even if they were a good match for someone else, they aren't good for us, and the fallout. Beautiful. Like this one. Pick it up if you like comics, if you like Batman, if you like Harley Quinn. And last of all, my most challenging read, and I like being challenged by my books. We have Mormon Feminism, edited by Joanna Brooks, Rachel Hunt Steenblick, and Hannah Wheelwright. I've heard you can pick it up at Deseret Book or online, which is where I got my copy. And it has about 50 different writers, more or less. I might be over-exaggerating or under-exaggerating, I'm not exactly sure, but it's a lot of different writers who have different things in here, including poetry and essays, and some of them quote some really interesting information. But most of all, I like that it challenges my mind. So some of them I agree with, some of them I don't agree with, some of them it's just interesting. So if you are interested in feminism, particularly Mormon feminism, I would highly recommend it. I've always been kind of curious about the Mormon feminist movement out here in Utah. I moved here in '93 when the whole big September 6th thing happened. I was here, and I didn't understand, being on BYU campus, why there was such a stigma against feminism there at BYU. I grew up elsewhere and never saw a problem or a contest between feminism and my ideology, which I'm LDS. So loved reading this, loved seeing why there are a lot of different viewpoints about it, and yeah, great read. It helped me understand a lot of things. Anyhow, so this is my book review, and as I said, I'm working on Frankenstein right now. I'm getting kind of slow moving through books because my mental capacity to comprehend different ideas and move through them contiguously, if they're in the form of a story, is yeah, it's about like that. So, article length, maybe. I can read articles, summaries. Not so good at full-length books, but I'm working on it. So, there you go. And I have one more treatment, and I'm not feeling too sick today. I'm a little nauseated, have been all day long, and didn't vomit the treatment. And, I do have lots of other interesting stuff physically, but other than that, things are looking good, and, I've stopped bleeding. Anyhow, have a great holiday, everybody. Merry Christmas, and have a great New Year. We'll see you on the other side.